Alright, I'm just going to start by removing this dial dial pointer right here. When I gave this radio a first look, I think I loosened this and I left it loose. Now, let me show you what I'm going to put the dial pointer in so that nothing happens to it. I have this little plastic case. That way it can get tossed around a bit and I don't need to worry about bending it. Nice, huh? Okay, so now let me see if I can remove this dial. I can already see a problem. These wires are soldered to these lamp sockets, and when I pull this dial off of here, the wires are going to stay attached. So they're pretty stiff. I don't know. I'll probably desolder them right here because I don't know what I'm going to do with them, and I want to keep my options open. There's 3 of these lamp sockets, but they're all wired in series, so I think all I have to do, actually they're wired in parallel, but all I have to do, there's 4 of them, all I have to do is disconnect this one here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. As you can see, I'm going to have to replace these grommets on this tuning condenser. So that means the tuning condenser is going to have to come off too. So I'll go ahead and remove the solder from these 2 points too so I can pull these wires out. So, alright, let's get this one done. Alright, we'll get some of that solder soaked up. Let's go ahead and get this loose from the chassis. Alright, so there are 2 hub screws on here at 90 degrees apart from each other, set screws that are standard screwdriver, and then this whole dial attaches to the tuning condenser right here. And actually, it'd probably be easier for me to remove this one. There we go. And let me get these loose here. I'll show them to you here in a second. There we go. See, that's all there is to it right there. I probably didn't even need to remove that dial needle, except that dial pointer needle, except that I don't want to damage it. So these just screw right here. There will be witness marks on the shaft. So witness mark right there on the shaft, and there's one right there. So that'll tell me kind of where to put it when I put it back. Alright, I'll go ahead and mount this screw back in the back of the dial so I don't lose track of it. I'll put the washer back on it too. I'm going to put an arrow on the back pointing up. Okay, that's my shorthand for this end up. Not that it would be hard to figure it out, but what the heck, I might as well. And you'll notice the way this tuning works. I love this kind because there's so little to have to do with them. There's no string, there's no gears, nothing. You see that? There's just 2 little friction discs here, kind of like the tensioner discs on a sewing machine. 2 little friction discs here that grab a hold of this big metal disc. And as long as that is clean, those will almost always work just great. So I'm not gonna worry about this. I'm gonna go ahead and set this aside, and I'll deal with cleaning it later. Oh, by the way, I'm missing a piece of the cork here. I'll probably cut a piece from my corkboard stock and kind of graft it in there. So now, as you can see, we've got a tuning condenser. So I might as well get that off of there here pretty quick because I'm going to need to replace those grommets anyway, so there's no time like the present. So let me look and see whether it's easier to disconnect these ground straps from up here or down below. Alright, oh, these are nice and easy to get from down below, so that's what I'll do, because it's often easier to do from this side of things. So let me get the soldering iron hot. I still have to tin my big soldering iron, my soldering gun, otherwise I'd use it. But I haven't tinned it yet. I probably should do that soon. That's why I bought the silly thing. Now when I'm doing this, I want to be very careful about overheating this braided wire, because I don't want to really damage the insulation of the wire inside. So one thing I'll often do, probably don't need it because it's sitting right on the chassis, but just in case, go ahead and put a little heat sink right about there. Okay, and that'll help. That was easy. This one probably not going to be so easy. Ah, not bad. I'll deal with that glob of solder later, and I'll have my soldering gun ready by then. Right now I just want to, there we go. I just want to be able to get that tuning condenser out, because I know I'm going to be putting that thing under some water here in the next little while. Since I'm upside down, I might as well just go ahead and remove these screws. There are 4 screws holding the tuning condenser on, pretty straightforward, and they go through the grommets, which you can see are hard as a rock. Okay, so those have to be replaced. The screws each have a brass bushing. So there's a screw, a fender washer, and a brass bushing that goes down through the grommet. The beautiful thing about the brass bushing is it fills up the space of the hole, but it also prevents you from over tightening it and over squishing the grommet. Oh, now this one's going to be tough because I have to be really careful about this coil. When I do the work on this, I'll probably loosen that and move that coil out of the way. But for right now, I think I can get away with doing this. Wow, that one's shot. So you can kind of see what I'm up against here. I will move that coil later when I have to put this back together. There we go. Last thing I want to do is damage an antenna coil. It might be an oscillator coil. The antenna coil looks like it's over here. Okay. Now, I've got the ground straps are easy to keep track of, so I won't need to really mark those. But I do need to mark these wires right here and make sure I put them back where they belong. So this one here goes to this switch position, which if I'm looking at from the back end of the switch with the bottom of the switch facing up, it's 1, 2, third terminal, 1, 2, third terminal from the 12 o'clock position. 1, 2, third terminal. And then this front one here is 1, 2, third terminal from the 12 o'clock position also. 1, 2, third terminal. One more wire. And that wire is right here. All right, so if I'm looking at it from the front of the radio, looking toward the back, it is the first, second, third terminal going counterclockwise. All right. I'm going to stay away from that coil. Okay. Let me finish cleaning up that terminal. That way, that's a good indicator of which terminal it is, the one that's clean. Okay, the really clean terminal will be the one I have to attach the wire to. That'll help me find it. This front band switch, where it attaches, there's a black wire that attaches to it also. That one right there. The other two band switch terminals have no other wires. Okay, I think all the wires are loose. So let me just see if I can slide that tuning condenser on out of there. All right, here we go. It's pretty dirty, but it's not bad. And should be easy to take care of now. Well, you know, what I'll do what I always do. I'll clean it really well. Use some deoxit on these fingers here. Okay. And I'll use some sewing machine grease after I clean this bearing out with lacquer thinner. I'll use some sewing machine grease in there. And a couple drops of sewing machine oil down there in that bushing. And that should take care of it. So this is what those fingers look like that I'm always putting deoxit on. Okay. One of the most irritating things that you can deal with when you're working on a radio is the damn power cord getting in your way all the time. So, you guessed it, I'm going to cut this thing off. I'm not going to use this power cord anyway. It doesn't really belong on this radio. There we go. Now I don't have to worry about it anymore. Notice I left enough of it so that I could see where everything went. I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out, but what the hell, you might as well. Wow, amazing. This is probably going to get on my nerves here pretty quick too, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this electrolytic. Alright, so this now is going to become a basic job of recapping this thing. So I'm just going to start replacing all these paper caps. And I'll replace probably most of these dog bone resistors too. And it should be pretty straightforward, so I'll get to that. And actually, that's not something that I'll generally, you know, you've seen me do it a bunch of times, so I'm not gonna make you watch that. When I find some interesting things, I will point them out, and I'll show those to you as I go. Okay, boys and girls, this here is that schematic for that Western Air Patrol. And you see it's a Model 76 and chassis number W487. Now, I'm not sure who made this chassis for these guys. Maybe Wells Gardner, who knows? Maybe it's hard to tell. But you'll notice a problem if you look real close at this. It is really hard to read. It's real fuzzy. And I got this off a Radio Museum, and usually Radio Museum schematics are beautiful. This one's going to be a challenge. So I'm going to have to kind of count on knowing what's in the radio, like knowing whether it makes sense or not. And also, looking up here, I can see that this likely came from Ryder's book number 15. Western Air, page 15-1 tells me that's probably from Ryder's. And so what I'll do is I'll get out one of my Ryder's books, and if it looks better in the book, then I'll scan it with my handheld, and I'll print that as a supplement to this. It may not even look better in there. We'll see. Sometimes these schematics from the 30s, especially the early 30s, were really awful. So let's see what we can come up with. In the meantime, I'll get to work on this thing. It's all set up for me to start doing some of these caps. I'm going to make it a short one tonight. I'm going to go up and watch a movie with wifeys. So on a Monday night, that is June 19th, from your Western Outpost in Salt Lake City, this is Michael. That's all for now.